I believe we are live. Make sure everybody can hear us. Somebody just drop a comment. Make sure they can see and hear us. By the way, we need to look up there. Hi.
Up there, so.
Yep.
And hear us. By the way, we need to look up there.
Yep, it works. All right, we've got 11 people on here already. That's cool. So as things start to grow, we get more and more people, which is also a little bit more and more scary. But today we want to do kind of a garden chat and just want to talk about things that are going on in the garden, kind of some updates, answer some questions. We've gotten a lot of questions on our videos on YouTube, and so we want to answer some of those questions and talk about what's going on. Oh, we got a lot of hellos. So hi to all of you. Jess Does Things, Aaron Edwards, Jeanette Meyer, and Jeffrey Green.
Okay.
Really good to see you all. So I also have an announcement to make a little bit later on, and we want to do a giveaway because we just hit 25,000 subscribers this week. It's going really fast. It feels like we just did a 10,000 giveaway, but we wanted to do a 25,000 giveaway also. And I will have how to enter into that a little bit later on. We want to start right away with the questions and stuff. And also, if you want to leave a comment, let us know where you're watching from. I have found it really, really interesting to see some of the comments we've been getting on our videos. I've seen Australia and India, Africa, the UK, all over the place, and that's really cool to see. So drop us a note. Let us know where you're from.
I've also seen a lot of Ohioans. It's pretty
awesome.
awesome.
It was really interesting. I've seen a lot of people mention that they're in Ohio. So go Ohio. So we're going to answer a few questions that we got out of our comments. And then we're also going to, like, if you've got some gardening questions that you want to ask, go ahead and ask those as well. And we'll try to get to them. I have a feeling the comments will come in fast enough that it'll be hard to keep up, but we'll see what we can do.
We have Virginia and Texas.
Missouri, South Dakota, Maryland,
nice.
Arkansas. Wow. All over the place.
That's
so
awesome.
Cool. So first of all, I titled this live something like "We Dump Milk on Our Plants." We got a lot of questions about like what kind of milk we dump on there and how much we do and stuff. So I'm going to let Michelle talk about that a little bit because interesting. So go ahead.
So I have been pouring milk on my garden for a really long time now, honestly. And before I even like went to the internet to see like how you're supposed to do it, like honestly, I just dump it on my garden. If I, didn't feel like making cheese that day, or if I had way too much skim milk, I just didn't know where to go with it all. And I really noticed that my squash plants got huge when I dumped milk on them. And after doing research, I found that milk has lots of sugars and enzymes in it that really feed the microbes in the garden. It'll make your compost pile go crazy, just all the things. I have never actually sprayed it on my plants. I've had so many people tell me I should.
For the squash plants. And that was
powdery mildew.
That was a 50-50 mix of water and milk. So
yeah, people were telling me to do that. And like, I haven't for some reason been able to make myself do it. And I think it's because some people say it's not okay. Some people are like, don't do anything with milk for mold because, it'll feed off of the sugars. And then other people say it changes the pH and that you should do it.
But from what we've seen, just putting the milk down at the base of the plants does help.
Yeah, it helps like the growth. I don't know. I also saw it's supposed to help with pesticides. Like it's supposed to keep bugs and stuff away. But I don't know. I'm still experimenting with all of that stuff. But yep, lots of vitamins, minerals.
Of milk in the garden. Would it be okay to use expired milk in your garden?
I mean, I don't know if it's like rotten.
I don't know if I would want to do something that would like attract flies too much. Wouldn't that attract more flies maybe?
I mean, so raw milk is just it's not going to spoil. Right. Raw milk is just going to sour. And that's awesome. Like that's what it's supposed to do in your compost pile. It's supposed to sour and like ferment. Fermentation, anything fermented is really good for the soil. Can
you use grocery store bought milk? See that I don't really know.
So okay. I did look that up actually, because I just kind of wondered what the benefits would be of putting store milk on. And it said there really aren't nearly as many benefits from store milk, just simply because the enzymes that are responsible for making your soil go crazy, those aren't going to be in there.
Those are going to be killed when it goes through pasteurization.
Right.
So we are using raw milk, and it's usually the skim milk. We're not just like out there dumping gallons of our good milk on there, but when it gets skimmed for butter, than we use it on the garden.
Yeah. So
And-
basically, the more dead your milk is, the less benefit it's going to have for your garden. But
Right.
also, the fats in the milk are very good for your plants to help them against disease. And I mean, there's probably still some minerals and stuff in there. I don't know. I just know that there's definitely been studies that show that the store milk is not going to be as beneficial as good raw milk.
Right.
So
Johnson Roxon says sugars use molasses. I mean, totally legit comment there. Basically, the milk is just when we have extra skim milk and stuff, so we're just using it. Let's give a shout out. We're seeing people from Hawaii.
That's awesome.
And where's those others up there? Quebec, Austria, Virginia, another Ohioan. Good to see y'all here.
Yeah.
And for those of you who just jumped on, this live here is going to be garden chat. We want to give an update of how things are going out in our garden and also answer some questions that we've got in our comments. I've got a little announcement to make later on, and we want to do a giveaway. We just hit 25,000 subscribers, and we want to give away a couple of our hats, and we'll tell you how to enter into that in a little bit later. But let's go ahead and if you've got other questions, drop them in the comments. We'll try to answer them if we can get to them. We'll also keep going with these here. Oh, that's cool.
Mm-hmm.
All right. So the other one, somebody just asked what kind of broccoli.
Yes,
because that was a big deal.
I get Imperial, and I got some hate for it because I think it's a hybrid. That's just there was two kinds that my greenhouse had. One of them was Imperial and another one that was really good for side shoots. I like to get Imperial because it's really good for the head. It doesn't do as good side shoots, but honestly, by the time that I harvest the big head, it's often warmer, and there's like the little side shoots just get really wormy. And so I'm okay with just pulling my plants out and doing something else.
And if you've seen like our videos and a reel that she put on Instagram, like those broccoli heads are huge.
Yeah,
I mean, there's
they
a
get
lot
massive.
of broccoli on there.
They
So
get massive.
those work really, really well.
Yeah.
Nairobi, Canada, Ireland. So cool. Good to see y'all here. And somebody asked, how did we get into the farming homesteading thing? And I think we could cover that real quick. So when we first got married, my favorite food was Pop-Tarts and things like that. And I actually had some really bad teeth problems, and I was getting a lot of dental work done. It was costing a lot of money. And I had a friend that gave me a book. It was Cure Tooth Decay. I don't remember the author of the book, and it was all about using nutrition to heal your teeth. And I read that thing, and my personality here is like,
go big or go home.
Yeah, go big or go home. Once I latch onto something, I'm like, go for it. And I really latched on that. We started eating healthy. We started buying a lot of organic food, bulk food, and stuff like that. We were living in a basement apartment at the time. And so we couldn't really do any homesteading, but we did like use a little piece at her parents' property and a friend of ours. We did put in a little raised bed. And then we just kind of got the dream. My cousin actually was going to go be an intern at Polyface Farm. And when I saw that, I thought it was really weird to like want to be a farmer. But we went and visited him a couple of times, and I just really got on board for it. And finally, when we were ready to move out of that basement apartment, we decided we want to get property and have a homestead.
And for a little background for myself, like I grew up gardening. My mom gardened and canned, and my dad had cows and stuff like that. And so I was already used to it. And I like begged him to have a garden, and he was just like, he doesn't want to have a garden. So once he finally caught the vision, it was not hard to convince me because I really wanted to.
Yeah.
I did like a market garden in my youth and stuff like that. So I've been gardening all my life. But the animal part of it was pretty new to both of us. Right. Yeah.
I had a horse growing up. And so, I mean, that kind of thing, living in the country, having a horse, whatever, instilled the common sense thing in me. But learning to take care of a milk cow and stuff like that, that was a whole different story. But back to about her and her family. I mean, her, like several generations up were like legit homesteaders. So, I mean, she comes from a line of people who are doing the real thing all the way back. And so she's learned a lot from that. So that's really helped us out.
Yeah. It helped to make so that I wasn't scared of things like canning and and raw milk. Like I had no fear of that because my family had been doing it for generations already. So
yeah. Let's just hit a couple comments here. Well, grapes survive over the winter. Yeah. So those are perennials. Those are in the ground. They're going to stay in there. They're going to keep growing. And how long will it be? Was it like 2 years?
It was at least 2 or 3
years. So I did
think.
like a little bit of research before we planted those grapes, but not a whole lot. So we're just going to plan to kind of learn as we go along.
Mhm.
And how do we meet? We met at a Bible school. Interesting. I was living in Colorado. She was living in Ohio, and we met at a Bible school in Arkansas. And
Yeah.
during the time that we were dating, I also lived in Kentucky and Iowa. And anyways,
Yep.
kind of all over the place.
Yeah.
All right, so let's take on another question here. How do we water? Somebody wondered about how we water, and somebody also, and this wasn't a question I had in here, but some people have made comments about using like tap water for some stuff and wondering what kind of water we have here. And we do have well water here, so we're not putting chlorinated water on any of our stuff that you see washing in videos or anything like that.
Well, and actually, like if you use chlorinated water for anything like fermenting or sourdough or anything like that, it won't actually even work. It kills off
Right.
the good bacteria and stuff, and your products will get moldy and stuff. So you can't even use chlorinated water for a lot of this stuff.
Right. So talk about how we water the garden.
With a hose. No, Cody put hydrants in out by the garden, which is super nice.
Mhm.
But yeah, at this point, we don't have any kind of irrigation in our raised beds. I do have it on my list for next year, kind of my list for you next year, because I probably won't have all the skills to do it. But it would be really nice, especially for things like cucumbers. I don't like to water those from the top because fungus is an issue. And so it's super hard to water them in a raised bed. And
Right.
in a raised bed, you have to water oftener because they dry out faster. But it isn't too much of a problem because here in Ohio, it's so wet. And so it's almost too wet sometimes. And so irrigation really is not that big of a deal for us here.
Right. I am a little scared of putting in like the permanent drip lines just because we've changed so many things over the last few years and stuff, putting in the raised
Yeah.
beds. And plus with the raised beds, we're going to be rotating different crops in there. And so I do think it's a really good idea. And I know a lot of people do it with a lot of good success, but it is a little scary to me. But on the other hand, Michelle does spend a lot of hours when we have a dry spell. She'll spend a lot of hours out there watering. We use like a watering wand that works really well. And then we use the oscillating sprinklers, the ones that go
Yeah.
round and round. We start out using those, and those are kind of a joke because it's not going to get the corners. It just doesn't water as well.
I don't have a round garden, so
Right.
they just don't
So
work
the
real well.
oscillating ones work a lot better.
Yeah.
So I don't know. We're going to look into the drip stuff. Maybe do that for next year.
Mhm.
Kind of have to get a better idea of how these raised beds are going to work. So far, they're working out really well.
Yeah.
And speaking of that, somebody did ask what kind of lumber I use for the raised beds, and we did a video about actually building the raised beds. And I got rough cut white oak lumber from an Amish sawmill about an hour from here. I didn't want to use treated lumber because of the chemicals leaching into it. I didn't want to use galvanized steel because galvanized is also a chemical. And plastic, I would almost be more okay with, but that's still chemical that can be leaching into your soil. And then cedar would be a good option, but it was so expensive. But this rough cut lumber was super cheap. Our raised beds are 3.5 foot by like 10 foot, and they cost me like less than $50 each for that lumber.
Mhm.
And white oak might not last quite as long as cedar, but it should last a good long time. And they were pretty simple to build. So if I have to rebuild them after 10 years or whatever, I'm okay with that.
Yeah. Someone asked if we have a section of garden that we lay fallow unused for a season.
We don't really.
We
It
don't
would be a good
actually.
idea. And
Yeah,
something that
it would.
I've thought about, we've talked about and stuff, but
We've had friends who will like skip a whole season and just let their whole garden rest. I struggle to do that because we depend
Right.
so heavily on our garden for food. But yeah, maybe I need to look into some of the advantages.
okay, so
some
with raised beds, so that
benefits.
would be an easy way to do it.
Mhm.
You could have one or two of them be fallow for a year, or put a cover
Mhm.
crop in there or whatever. It does kind of happen, like the strawberries are done. We're going to till those under, and that, I mean,
Yeah.
it did grow strawberries this spring, but it won't be growing something all year long. So we do definitely try to rotate and stuff, but no, we don't really do
Yeah.
fallow. What is lay fallow? So lay fallow is basically just another word for not planting anything in there,
Yeah.
letting the ground rest. That was actually a principle in the Old Testament that the Israelites were supposed to do. Like every 7 years, they were supposed to let the ground rest. And it's just kind of it is really healthy for the soil. It's a good principle. It's not necessarily necessary if you want to put it that way, but
We
it's
are
a good idea.
very intentional about like doing cover crops, feeding. Like we feed our soil, we put compost in it every year.
Mhm.
So we're very careful about not
Very
just like
conscientious about
raping
not,
the soil,
yeah,
but
about not just pulling everything out, always
Mhm.
putting back in and making
Yeah.
it better.
people are saying a lot about soaker hoses.
Yeah, I actually do have one soaker hose out in the garden shed that we've just never really used. But
I
it
didn't
would
even
definitely be good.
think about it. There was a difference between a soaker hose and a drip hose. I don't even know the difference.
Okay, so a drip line would basically just, they're kind of the same thing, but a drip line is more just like a little pipe or a little
Oh.
whatever. This would actually be a hose that you could more pick up a little
And move
more.
around.
Yeah.
Right. That makes
type of thing.
sense. Yeah, that makes sense.
Talk about weed control. How do we
Mhm.
get started with beekeeping, and do we use ground cover in the winter?
And cow dung. Do we use cow dung?
Yes, very, very,
Yes.
very much.
We compost all the manure from our animals, and we literally have way too much compost even.
Right.
We can't even use it all. So
Yeah.
we just like, we put it on thick, and it makes for an amazing garden.
So I do a went blank. What do you call the deep bedding? I do deep bedding for my cows in the winter. So I do like shovel the the cow patties out to keep it clean, but basically I just keep layering straw or sometimes leaves or wood chip, but most of the time it's straw, and just let a lot of that cow manure stay in there. And then at the end of the winter, in the spring and summer, then I'll clean it out with the tractor, put it all in a big pile, and let it compost. And composting is something that I would like to talk about in a video sometime. I'm not a super expert on it, and basically we're really lazy about our compost, but it's one of those things that we felt like we've had to do to be able to stay ahead of things. So the best way to do compost would be to turn it, on a regular basis, keep it at the right temperature, the right moisture content and stuff like that to really get it going. But with how much compost we have, I would have to have a lot better setup and stuff to be able to turn it often enough. So we pretty much just put it on a pile and let it sit for a couple years. And by the time a couple years goes by, then it's ready to use. And so if we keep a couple piles going at once, then we're able to keep using it.
And it does still have weed seeds. Like it doesn't get hot enough to kill all the weed seeds, but the compost makes the soil so nice and loose that the weeds, it's so easy to pull them out. And I've just found that, yeah. So somebody asked about weed control. I mulch everything. I just mulch it thick with leaves. I used to do the whole thing with paper and straw.
That was a little bit of an exaggeration, probably.
Okay, whatever. I used to do paper and straw, but paper was getting expensive and we weren't sure about like the glues and stuff in the paper. And also straw was questionable as to whether it was organic, whether it had lots of sprays and stuff in it. And so we ended up switching to leaves, and I absolutely love it. I mean, the leaves just make the soil just loose and fall apart. It's amazing. And you don't have to pick it up at the end of the year. It just gets tilled right in.
Paper and straw just didn't even work as well either.
It did
and so
not.
If you can't get access to leaves, I would recommend using paper and straw more than doing nothing.
Right.
But if you can get access to leaves, like if you have a local leaf service, call them up and ask them if they want to just dump it for you, because they usually have to pay to take it somewhere. So it can be their benefit to drop it off at your place to dump loads of leaves.
Yeah.
But if you can't get access to those, what I did is I went to Home Depot and got I think it was 3 foot wide rolls of painter's paper, like the brown painter's paper. And then I would use my chop saw or skill saw and cut it into just like strips, like 1 foot strips or 1.5 foot strips, whatever we needed for in between the rows, roll it out and then put straw on top of that. And it worked okay, but it didn't work nearly as well as the leaves.
So the secret with the leaves is that they mat together and the straw didn't. The straw left like this airflow. It let heat get down in there, but the leaves compact and they make this mat and some weeds will come up through, but they're really easy to keep on top of.
I mean, think about when you're walking around in the woods, there is like a mat of leaves. They all kind of go on top of each other and stuff, where the straw is more like, a bunch of straws stacked on top of each other and it leaves holes and stuff. And straw seems to take forever to break down. Yeah, it does.
It does. Yeah. And that's why I was saying you have to pick it up at the end of the year. And it didn't do nearly to the soil what the leaves do.
Right. And a lot of people have mentioned about like having problems with the leaves, like building up fungus, mold, or things like that. And so far, we haven't had any issues.
I mean, obviously we have fungus issues in our garden, but we had even more of those back when we didn't use leaves.
Yeah.
So
It's not the same kind of fungus issues.
right. And okay, here is a disclaimer. I don't use leaves for my strawberries. They're called strawberries for a reason. And like, I feel like the straw is much drier on top than leaves are.
Mm-hmm.
And so I still am a die-hard straw person when it comes to strawberries. So that is one thing I don't use leaves for.
Right.
So, yeah.
Forced air system in a compost farm. So I actually did try to do that.
Was that the what you did with the pipes?
Yeah. So like 2 years ago when I was building up my compost pile, I went and got pipes, like 4-inch pipes with holes in it, and laid them out in there. I did like a layer of pipes and then compost and then some pipes and then more compost. I never got around to actually like putting a piece on. I actually had a blower for it and everything, but I never got around to hooking it up and actually blowing air in there. Then what happened was when I wanted to get the compost out using my tractor and bucket, I just ruined all those pipes.
Mm-hmm.
I know there would be a better way to do it, but my experience with it, I was just like, forget this. I'm going back to how I was. I mean, I've spent money on those pipes. It was a pain, and I never got around to putting the air in there, which would have helped because our compost, some of it that we used this year was really wet.
Yeah.
But yeah. So,
we definitely could use some lessons in composting.
Right.
We're not your authority on that.
Right.
Yeah. Weren't there some questions further up?
I think there was maybe. Oh, about the bees.
Oh.
So I think somebody asked, how did we get started and what kind of bee boxes do I have? So with beekeeping, it's something that I've wanted to do for a very long time. I have a couple friends that do beekeeping, and it's another thing that we wanted to do to be able to be more self-sufficient, because a lot of the food that we eat and stuff comes, from our homestead, but we don't do any sweeteners. We didn't do any maple syrup. We don't have maple trees on our property, and stuff like that. So I really wanted to do honey. And so was it last year? Yeah. Not this last spring fall. I got started with it, and basically I just decided I'm going to go for it. I asked some advice. I got a book. I forget what it's called. It's like a thick book. I read through that and pretty much just dove into it. I built my own hives. They're horizontal hives. So instead of your conventional Langstroth hives, like boxes that you stack on top of each other, there's a horizontal hive. It's like one big box that you drop the frames in, and it's supposed to be more natural for the bees. And so far I've had mixed success with how things are going. I bought a nuke box last spring, and ended up they grew really fast and looked really good. And so I split them, but ended up both parts of that split disappeared. I don't know what happened to them, but I caught a swarm last spring also. And that swarm overwintered in a hive, and they're still out there doing really well. I just checked a couple of days ago, and I'm not quite sure what's going on. It looks like they may have swarmed, like bees are still there, but a swarm might have split off. I couldn't tell quite if there's a queen in there or not. So I called up my beekeeping buddy and asked him some stuff. So I'm going to be going back in, and hopefully I can get that taken care of and figured out. But there is, so I've got 3 hives out there right now, and one of them is going strong, doing really, really well. The other 2 are a little iffy at this point. So definitely a learning process, but super good. I mean, I think the cow has always been the favorite thing for me on our homestead, but bees are a super close second. It is so cool to go out there, and you can just like sit out there and just watch them fly in and out, or pull out those frames and just look at them. Way, way cool.
Well, and I think what makes them cool too is like what they give you, like honey.
Right.
I mean, you can plant a zucchini plant and get zucchinis, but like honey, that's a really cool thing to work towards.
Yeah, it is.
Yeah.
Greetings from Germany. Howdy. Good to see you here. I did build so on horizontalhive.com, you can buy already built frames or frame kits, which is basically the pieces all cut out and you put them together, or you can get plans and build your own. I didn't feel like I had the time to build my own. My dad has a woodworking shop and everything, but I just didn't have the time. So I bought the kits and then assembled them myself.
I like the banana peel water idea. I'm assuming that would be giving potassium to your plants because bananas are high in potassium, but yeah.
All right. So real quick here, let's talk about a couple other things that I wanted to make a little announcement, and that is we just opened up memberships for the channel. Something that we were a little scared to do. We don't want anybody to get the idea that we're asking for money. That is not what this is about. I mean, we do need to make money to we do need to make money to keep going with this and keep doing this and be able to get more content out to more people. But please don't look at it that way. We hope you don't take it that way. It's a way to give you an opportunity to connect more with our channel and with others in our channel. You get some cool little perks and stuff, and it's just an opportunity to be along for the ride, to help spread our message of helping people homestead without getting burned out and stressed out. So that is opened up, and we're in a live chat. You even get cool little emojis and stuff you can use in the live chat, and some behind the scenes content. As more and more people are coming to the channel, we're having a harder time keeping up with all the comments and answering the questions in the comments. So one of the tiers of the memberships, you get priority reply to comments, and that's basically just that we will get to your comments first. So anyways, just putting that out there. And we want to do a giveaway. We want to actually do 2 giveaways, and we're going to be giving away a couple of our hats. We've got a shop. I don't know if it's at the bottom of this video, but if you go to our channel page and click on shop, you can see the merch we have. You can also, at the bottom of most videos, it's down there too. But anyways, giving away a couple of these hats. And the way that we're going to do that this time is we're going to ask 2 questions, and 1 question for one hat, 1 question for another hat. And it'll be your choice of hat, by the way. And whoever answers with the correct answer first is the person we're going to be sending it to. So
Number 1.
first question. Did I answer this question already when I answered that? I don't think I did.
I don't think so.
All right. First question. How much money did I spend this spring, on getting bees? So we did add some bees. We have all 3 hives are full. So how much money did I spend this year on getting bees? That is the first question. So first person with the answer will get a hat, and we'll ask the other question after a little while. Let's go on to some more. Talk about onions. That's something people had a lot of questions
Lots
about.
of people ask about
Plants
onions.
versus sets, and then just give them some other tips about growing the big onions.
So I think that there's a whole bunch of them that just like boom came in.
Chantel Georgian?
Yes.
0 is correct because I caught 2 swarms. So I did not buy any bees
Totally
this spring.
free.
Totally free bees because I caught swarms. If you're interested in beekeeping, that is a really good way to start. I mean, it's really, really easy and it's free.
Mhm. Yes.
So Chantel, please, if you can find our, probably about the easiest, if you can find our Instagram or Instagram would probably be about the easiest. If you send me a DM over there with your info and stuff, then I'll send you a hat. Yeah. So talk about onions.
Okay, so onions love nitrogen. And so I think that a lot of the success that I have with onions is because we have nitrogen in our compost. Like our compost is made from manure, so it's going to have lots of nitrogen. Another thing that I do is I give them a lot of water when they're starting out, because if you think about it, onions are very juicy. And I take that to mean that they need a lot of water to make a really nice, big, fat, juicy onion. They also really like leaves. They like to be, so onions are a cool weather plant. They like nice, cool, damp weather. And so having a dense leaf mulch over them will keep the soil nice and damp and cool, which they really love. The other thing that really changed onions for me was planting plants rather than sets.
Mm-hmm.
For some reason, I can't explain it to you. I don't know why. The onion plants that I got, you buy them in like a bunch at a greenhouse or wherever. The onion plants just get a much bigger bulb. I guess it could be variety.
I think it has to do with, so the way that, if I remember right, the way onion sets are, is they're actually grown one season and then
Dried.
they're basically dried and like kept in dormancy until you plant them again the next year. And so it's that versus the onion plant is basically, I mean, a plant from a seed, I guess.
Yeah.
I mean, it's just a little green plant.
It's like a little green shoot.
Yeah.
And when you plant them, you're like, oh, this is not going to do anything. But they do. They're amazing. And I get like massive, I don't know if you can tell how big this is on the screen, but like huge onions. We've weighed them. How much are they? Like over a pound?
I don't remember, but they were just really,
It's
really
crazy.
big. Yeah.
So yeah, those are my best tips on onions. If they don't bulb, a lot of people tell me mine just don't get a bulb on them. I'm guessing it has to do with nitrogen.
Probably.
And I actually, I talked with a farmer at a farmer's market that we went to, and his onions were massive, like way bigger than the ones I grow. And I was like, how do you do that? And he was like, oh, nitrogen. He was like, I just shoot them full of
Pump 'em full of
nitrogen.
nitrogen.
Yeah.
He was using synthetic nitrogen.
He was
but
using synthetic nitrogen.
principle is the same.
But the principle is the same. And
Right.
so I did some research and I looked it up, and it said that nitrogen is like the absolute biggest key to raising onions with a nice big bulb. So
Right.
those are my best onion tips.
We did get a bunch more answers. 0 on the bees. Good job, guys. A little
Nice.
too late on the draw there.
yeah.
Good to see somebody from South Carolina. And yeah, if you just hopped on within the last bit, let me know where you're watching from. And it's super interesting to see where people are watching from.
Yes.
Is your drinking water the same from the well? So yeah, we actually do use a Berkey filter for our water though.
Mhm.
We've got cornfields like on 3 sides of us, and those chemicals and stuff will be leaching into the water, which I
Yeah.
hate, do not like, but that's the way it is pretty much about anywhere in Ohio. So we do use a Berkey filter for our drinking water, run it through there, but the garden is just coming straight out of the well.
Yeah. There was one in there.
Hey, Tina's a new member. Howdy.
Oh, yay.
Join.
There was one in there about a little bit. Oh, do our children help with chores? Absolutely.
Yes.
Our children help with a lot of the chores. They have about 30 minutes of chores every morning, and that's pretty much it.
Yeah.
So our daughter, she gathers the eggs, and then our two
Youngest son
two
does the
boys.
dog
Yeah.
and one set of chickens we have.
Mhm.
And then our oldest son, he takes care of the broiler chickens right now and our
Mhm.
laying hens. And they help out with a lot of other stuff. But I've been trying to come up with ways to make things as easy, simple, and
Mhm.
efficient as possible. Not just to make so that they have to work, but to make so that they can do those
Mhm.
things. And so that if we ever want to go on vacation and stuff like this, then or stuff like that, then we can have somebody do it and they don't have to work so hard to do stuff. So I
Yeah.
want to try to make things as easy as possible. And one of the reasons is so our children can help with that. So yes, they do definitely help out quite a bit. I'm very, very proud of them. And they get some monetary return for that as well. And they've saved their money and bought a lot of cool stuff and whatever. So
Yeah.
we want to teach them how to use money and everything. So that's
Yeah.
our way of doing that.
We want to teach them that it actually takes work to make money, no matter what you do, whether it's farming, whatever,
Right.
And I also feel like having them understand where their food comes from, it makes them like not waste as much. I mean, they're
Mhm.
still kids, but
Right.
I feel like there is more gratitude there when they have helped to raise their
Mhm.
food.
They've seen where it started,
Mhm.
how much work it took to get there.
Mhm.
So,
Yes.
how do you sign up for membership? There's a button like on our channel page. It says join. Just click on that and it should be pretty simple from there.
Just push a button.
Ooh, let me look at some of these comments real quick. Hey, Tom Reppert, good to have you.
Nice.
My opinion on Michigan versus Tennessee versus Florida.
Whew.
I really don't know. I've never lived in any of those places.
I mean,
do know
Michigan
that-
gets a lot of snow and it's really cold.
but I do think it's fairly similar, depending on where you go, fairly similar to Ohio in a lot of ways. Tennessee, I know, is a really popular place. So maybe if you're from California, probably want to do what everybody else does and go to Tennessee. I don't know. How much land do you use as farmland? So our entire property is about 5.5 acres. And we just measured it the other day for one of the last videos we did that we have about 1/8 of an acre of like garden growing space.
Mhm.
That's like our 2 gardens, the grapes. That did not include where our fruit trees are. We've got about half a dozen or so fruit trees. But the garden space is 1/8 of an acre. And I've never actually measured out my pastures, but I think we've got about 3 acres in pasture. And we have our milk cow, and sometimes we'll have a calf yet, and then raising a steer for beef usually. So we can usually raise about 2 full-sized cattle in that. So, yep.
Mm-hmm. Should I do my question now?
Yeah, so we want to do another giveaway for another hat, and Michelle's going to ask this question.
Okay. So, what is my all-time favorite tomato variety?
First person with the correct answer will send you a More Than Farmers hat. What do our eggs retail for? We were selling them at a store, and they were $6 a dozen. I have a friend who does like farmers markets and stores and stuff like that, and they were I think they sell theirs for like $8 a dozen around here.
Yeah, Kay, Amish paste.
And there we go.
Awesome.
All right, Kay. So if you want to find us on Instagram, whatever, send us a message with your info and stuff. We will send you a More Than Farmers hat.
Send me a DM and I will get that to you.
Big boy is a good Cherokee purple.
That's
now,
Cody's favorite.
Now, if we would have asked that question, you'd have been right. Cherokee purple is
Yeah.
my favorite. Those are harder to grow for us. We've had more problems with like, I guess fungus
it's an
and stuff like
heirloom
those.
variety. And I've heard that Amish paste is an heirloom variety too, but it must just be a very hardy one because the Cherokee purple, I struggled so bad with the fungus. Now, somebody told me, and I've been thinking of doing this anyways, but they said they're wondering if our soil is lacking calcium. And they said we should do a soil test. And I really want to do that. I actually had ordered a soil test last year from Berlin Seed. By the way, this is our favorite seed catalog. We buy everything from here, I think. All of our fertilizers like fish emulsion and seaweed and everything. But
it's an Amish company in Holmes County, and you can't go online and order stuff. You either have to call or mail in. So
I did look. They have a website. They do have a website.
Can
with
you order
a
on
phone
there?
number. I'm not sure if you can order, but I know
you can look
that
them
they
up, Berlin Seeds, and you can just like call them and ask for a catalog. It's been best for us so far.
Yes. But I actually had ordered a soil test kit, but they were out. And so they just like sent me a note that said we don't have one.
Could have gotten it somewhere else. It's just
Yeah.
one of those things we've never gotten around to. It's the type of thing that it seems like everything does pretty well in the garden. So it's like just kind of keep putting it off, but it's something that definitely should be done.
Yeah. But it would take so much of the headache away if I didn't have to worry about the powdery mildew with my squash and tomatoes. I do have struggles with blight with tomatoes, but everyone in Ohio does. I think I haven't heard of a single Ohioan who doesn't have blight issues with tomatoes. So
how about you say what some advice is for people who are beginners, and I'll look through some of these comments and see if there's anything else.
Ooh, advice for beginners. I mean, for me, it would be to for sure prioritize relationships and take everything slowly so that you have time. Like for us, the reason that we started homesteading in the first place was because we wanted to have a really great place to raise a family. And we also wanted really healthy, nutritious food. We just kind of wanted a wholesome, healthy lifestyle. And one thing that I have found in the past 10 years of going up and down with my health and things like that is that mental health plays a huge role in overall health. And so to me, if we are just neglecting the relationships because we're trying to get stuff done, if we're putting relationships last, and then we're missing out on a lot of the reason that we're actually homesteading in the first place. So that's my first piece of advice. My second piece of advice would be, I think probably some of our biggest mistakes were just not doing things right the first time.
Yeah. I think there's a balance there because when we started homesteading, we were like dead broke. We just like didn't have any money. And so there was things we did have to like cut corners and do things the hard way, but the less costly way to start out with. There are some places where I wish we would have waited a little longer or saved a little longer to do something. I can't just like think off the top of my head, but I do know there were some things like that. So it's kind of finding a balance of what to just get by with for a while and, you know, do kind of half-heartedly and not half-heartedly, but, you know, not put a lot of money into it, and what to just go for right away. But yeah, definitely. I was actually thinking about doing a video of that, going over some of the things that we did and didn't do at the beginning that I wish would have been different.
Yeah.
So maybe we can do a little bit deeper dive into that later on.
Well, and the other thing too that I think we actually did right when we started was we did a lot of like our fencing wasn't permanent fencing. We did stuff that we could redo later if we wanted to.
Yeah.
And so like if you just go and put a whole bunch of money into like permanent fencing and then you realize, oh, okay, I don't actually want this fence here anymore.
Yeah. I've changed a lot of fences.
We have changed a lot of stuff like that. And also another thing is
we even changed our garden spot. I mean,
yeah. Another thing is planting trees. Think long and hard before you plant trees.
I've dug up a couple trees that I planted in the wrong spot. And,
like
that's
do all of your research. Like cows don't like cherry tree leaves and stuff are really toxic for cows, I guess. And so we ended up having to take out a cherry tree. I was skeptical as to whether it would actually kill a cow, but people were like, oh yeah. So we dug out the cherry tree, and it was like the nicest of our fruit trees, and then it didn't make it.
Right.
And we've also planted trees that are supposed to get really, really big, like too close to the house. Like plant them further apart, like err on the side of too far apart, and like yeah.
And basically, before you do anything permanent, think long
Just
and hard and
think
do some
everything
research.
through.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But some of the other stuff, I mean, sometimes you just got to go for it.
Yeah.
I mean, do I wish we would have planted the trees better? Yeah, but was it just a huge mistake that really set us back? No, not really. It was okay.
Super interested in your knowledge on fruit trees.
Yeah, we only have a little bit of knowledge. We're learning.
We're still learning on that one. That's why we haven't done a lot of content on fruit trees, because we are majorly learning.
Yeah.
Another member. Nice.
Hi, Jeffrey. Tom Rippert did ask a little bit ago, do we use any pre-made fertilizers like Neptune's Harvest or anything?
The only two fertilizers that I ever have used in the history of ever is fish emulsion and liquid seaweed. Those to me just seem very natural. I know everything that's in them. I don't have to guess like, I wonder if this is good or bad. It's just fish and seaweed. So other than that,
we do
and compost,
use, dried kelp.
Dried kelp. Yeah, we'll
And
put that
like
in the hole.
When we dig holes to put plants in, we'll put some dried kelp in there with that.
Yeah. But other than that, we don't use any of
And
the
by the way,
fertilizers.
in Berlin Seeds, I don't want to take the time to look at it right now, but they have fish fertilizer in there, and they have the Neptune's Harvest fish fertilizer, and I forget how much it is a gallon, but it seems kind of expensive. And like right underneath it, it just says fish fertilizer, and it's in an unmarked bottle. And I called him and I was talking to him about it one time and asked him the difference, and the guy's like, "There's actually no difference. That they get it in the 50-gallon drums and put it in the smaller bottles, and they can sell it a lot cheaper that way." But Neptune's Harvest won't let them label it individually like that. So anyways,
it's actually the same thing.
Yeah. If you're looking for fish fertilizer, go into the Berlin Seeds catalog and just get the one that doesn't have a label, and it's a lot cheaper.
I'm glad to hear that cherry trees aren't that deadly.
That's funny.
See, we could have a cherry tree right by the pasture.
Maybe we could have. Somebody also mentioned something, going back a little bit, mentioned something about our chicken coop, having a third wheel on the front. So if you watch my video about how I built a chicken coop for Izzy and for his chickens, it's just a small one. And I use a dolly on the front to like hook on and move it. There's wheels on the back that go up and down. The thing that it could definitely be done to put a permanent wheel on the front, but the frame would have to be a little bit different. And I have to rig up something on a lever to make it go up and down. So definitely could work. It just looked like it would have taken a lot more work and stuff. And I was fine with using the dolly thing, but definitely a good idea there.
The cucumber plant only having male flowers, honestly, I don't really know. I mean, would that have something to do with pollinating?
Look at your flowers though? You never really pay attention to what flowers there.
I don't.
Pretty much if there's flowers on there, most likely cucumbers are.
It's just not something I've really paid attention to, but I have major problems with growing cucumbers, and so maybe I should look at that.
Right. But it's not necessarily that you just have a problem with them growing. It's just that they get
fungus so fast. Yeah. Not seeing a join button.
The only thing that I can think of with that is it should be at the top. I think it's underneath some of the videos too. Maybe if you click on a video, might do that. If you're looking to do a channel membership.
Yeah.
So anyways.
Oh, what to grow from seed.
Oh, yeah.
So there was a question about what do we grow from seed and what do we grow from plants? I'm assuming that means like, what do we direct seed in the ground, or what do we like actually plant seedlings out into the garden? So I plant for seedlings to start indoors. I do tomatoes, peppers, all of my herbs like basil, thyme, all of those. Kind of a rule of thumb, like just planting herb seeds out usually isn't the most effective. Those are a little bit more difficult to germinate. So the only things that I direct seed are things like cucumbers and squash, carrots, corn, beans, like green beans or dried beans, any of those. I always seed those in. But the things that I use seedlings for would be broccoli, cauliflower, cabbage, tomatoes, peppers, and all of my herbs and flowers, I would always do seedlings.
Yeah.
So something I'm missing. Potatoes, obviously you would plant a potato. And like lettuce, I always direct sow my lettuce. I've never in the history of ever planted out a lettuce plant.
I think that sounds really fun.
I'm sure you could. I have seen people direct seed. I mean, I've seen people literally plant corn seedlings, like,
Right.
and it's
I know
just so
there's
highly,
like some
yeah.
big market gardeners and stuff that will do almost everything as seedlings
Mhm.
because of like germination rate. They know, rather than planting seeds and then hoping for a good germination rate, they'll do it indoors and get the
Mhm.
plants, and they know they're going to have the exact right spacing and everything for their
Yeah.
plants. It's a lot of, in my opinion, it's a lot of extra work, a lot of extra hassle. You got to have more equipment and stuff like that
Yeah.
to be able to start that many things.
Well, and it takes a lot of space inside. Like if you're going
Right.
to plant a big amount, like a big patch of corn, can you imagine how much space it would take inside your house to get all those started?
Right.
What I do is I will plant, like for especially green beans and corn, I'll plant 2 seeds right beside each other. And then, I mean, you're pretty much guaranteed to have a nice row
Right.
of corn. And then I'll just thin them a little bit here and there
Right.
if all of them come up. So, yep.
Kevin has asked about health insurance retirement plan. So I do
Hmm.
have a retirement plan with, I do have an off farm job. So YouTube is like on the side for us. Homesteading is on the side for us. And I do have a full-time job, and there's a retirement plan through that. And then health insurance, we are with Christian Healthcare Ministries. And I do really like that because it's a form of giving, it's helping others, and then it's insurance also.
Struggling when and when not to water. Hmm.
Hey, that's a Cody, but it's spelled with a Y. My name is spelled with an I.
Yeah. I always just like feel the soil around the plants to see if they actually need watering. And so like in Ohio, it's very, very rare that if you reach under your mulch and feel the soil, that it will actually be dry. But depending on where you're from, that you will know that you're overwatering them if your plants are kind of yellow. And yeah.
I mean, I feel like a lot of more common sense would come into play there. Like basically, if it looks really wet, don't water it.
Yeah.
Also, it's really good to water either in the early morning or the late evening. You don't want to water in the middle of the day when there's a lot of hot sunshine.
Because then you'll just lose a lot of your water.
Yeah.
So. Oh wow.
That's hot.
110 degrees. I mean, if it's that hot, you're probably going to have to water a lot.
Yeah.
That's my guess, especially if you don't mulch. I would just what I do is I stick my finger down into the ground around the plant. And if it's like dry down this far, and then you need to water.
Mm-hmm.
So,
Also, this is for strawberries. I don't know how quickly you could catch it, but I know in the spring when we're getting our strawberries, if we've gotten a lot of rain, the strawberries will be kind of bland. Like
yeah,
they won't be as flavorful because they're just like oversaturated with water.
They're full of like the strawberries like made up of too much water almost.
Right. How much land? That's a really hard question.
Well, it depends if you want animals or not.
Yeah. So for a cow, if you're going to want a cow, you're going to have at least an acre of pasture per cow. 2 acres would be better.
Mm-hmm.
And then for gardens, if it's just you, it's not going to take much. I mean, I've seen people grow tons of food like on their back porch in pots.
Yes. Especially if it's just you that you're growing food for.
It just really depends on how much you're wanting to grow. It's amazing what people can do in small spaces. I could never make it in the city for very long. I really couldn't, but I've been really tempted. Like, I wish I had maybe a second life to live alongside this one, so I could go live in the city and just see like how much I could do on a
what
small
all
plot of
can
land.
you do in a tiny little plot.
But we've got a pretty decent amount of room here to spread out, which is really nice, but I know that you can do with a lot less than this. And chickens don't take a lot of space, especially depending on how you do it. With a decent sized backyard, you can do a mobile coop with a few chickens. That would be, I wouldn't really want to do with less. You can just keep them in a coop, but then they're not getting pasture and everything. So I'd go either way with that.
Mm-hmm.
So anyways, we are over 45 minutes. We usually try to do about 45 minutes for a live here. So it was really great to talk with all of you. It was so cool to see where everybody's watching from. South Africa again. a lot of people from Africa, which seems crazy to me, but that is really cool.
I've been to Africa twice, by the way.
Yeah.
I love it there.
And we are super glad for all of you that joined as members. Really appreciate that.
Yes.
We hope to give you some great on the side content and stuff. And yeah, we are planning to have another video come out next Sunday. So I guess we'll see you there.
Yeah. See ya.
Oh, real quick. Somebody just dropped us $25.
Oh,
Thank you
thank
so much.
you.
Appreciate that. And we
Thank
are
you.
glad to help as much as we can.